After the last two lessons, you understand why we need markup languages and why we need style sheet languages. So what's a programming language and why do we need it? Programming languages are used to control the behavior of a computer. We'll use them to organize, process, or manipulate our data. If we were writing a poem, we could use a programming language like JavaScript to take every single lowercase letter and make it uppercase. And that's what we have in the example on this slide. We could also use it to change every single period at the end of a sentence into a question mark or an exclamation point. And while that might not be super difficult for us to do by hand if it was a short poem, imagine if we had a book with 10,000 sentences in it. Would you want to change each of those by hand? You could, but a programming language could do it in seconds or less, while you might take a whole day if you were doing it by hand. Computers at the most basic level only understand binary data, which is a series of ones and zeros. And if you didn't already know that, we will cover more of that theory in later units. So why do we program a computer with programming languages instead of ones and zeros? Couldn't we just write all of our programs in a bunch of ones and zeros? You could, but it sucks. Why would you ever do that if you had a better option? Programming languages let us write instructions for computers in a more human-readable form that sucks less. So where do we use programming languages? Computers. I hope that was obvious. But going into more detail, operating systems such as Microsoft Windows are written using human-readable programming languages. So are video games, web browsers, and text, audio, and video editors. Even TikTok on your smart fridge. Yes, that smart fridge is really just a fridge with a computer slapped on it, which means you can program it with a programming language. So how do these programming languages work? At a very high level, meaning that we won't go deep into the details, a programming language works by taking the human-readable stuff that sucks less, and it turns it into the binary data that computers understand. We call that step compiling or interpreting, depending on the programming language that we're using. They're slightly different, and we'll discuss the difference between them in a later unit. For now, you only need to understand that we go from human-readable to computer-readable. What are some examples of programming languages? JavaScript, C, and Python are common programming languages. We can see a short program here written in each of them. All three examples are doing the exact same thing, printing out a message on the computer screen that says "Hello World." You can see that each one looks like it has slightly different rules. We call that the syntax of the language. The way that you give a computer instructions varies a little in each language. We'll be learning JavaScript in this course, and you should stick with it until you've fully mastered the rules of that language. If you only learn a little JavaScript and then try and start learning Python or some other programming language, it'd be like studying French for 3 weeks and then switching to study Spanish for 3 weeks. You're not going to learn either of them that way. Stick with one until you've mastered it or are at least very proficient, then move on to the others. I've seen lots of students make that mistake before. Please learn from their mistakes. Don't do it yourself and waste your own time. Okay, hopefully you now understand the difference between markup languages, style sheet languages, and programming languages. If not, you can review it. There's nothing wrong with that. We don't worry about letter grades like an A or an F in this course. Everyone learns at their own pace, so it's better to review it now if you need to than to not understand these concepts.